It's my camera left just in there. All right.
All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Can I get a roll call? Tim Hamilton, Lou Henniger, Mike Faulkner. Okay, so we have a complete board.
Got it.
Do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda? Just to inform all the board members, as well as we appreciate everybody coming out tonight, but I want to inform you of what the purpose of tonight's meeting is. There's going to be no determinations made as a result of tonight's meeting. The reason that is because the issues that are coming before us, of which there are 4, they're rather complex. Some of the material is material that this board has not been part of necessarily over the period of time that some of these projects have been going. And we want to make sure we hear all of the information that we need and then have the time to walk through that personally before then we'll have a subsequent meeting in which we'll allow public comment. Because I don't want to confuse the information, the facts we have to work with now with public comment. I want us to have the facts as we understand them and then allow public to comment to those. So the purpose of this meeting is everybody is welcome to listen in. We'll only be addressing and asking questions of the applicants and their representatives in order to clarify. And I want you to ask as many questions as we need so that we get a full understanding of everything that we need to deliberate upon, but then we're not going to make any kind of determination. So what I prefer that even as we discuss things, we won't get to a discussion of the rules of application. We won't really be, we can raise those to remind ourselves of what those are, but we're not going to discuss those. We're not going to offer opinions about those. We're going to stay completely away from that. We're only going to gather the information. So that when we come back and we'll schedule at the end of this meeting, we'll schedule our next public hearing. At that point, if we need additional information from the applicants, they'll have time to submit that information to us prior to that meeting or be prepared to present that information when we get to the next meeting. Everybody understand that? So what that means is, so we ask of the public that you're welcome to listen in on this, but we'd ask that you not interrupt, not comment, not pose questions. That's not what this is for. I'm not saying that individually, after a meeting, if you want to talk to a board member and ask something, you are certainly welcome to submit questions or concerns because we will be a week, at least 2 weeks out to the next meeting. You have sufficient time if you want to ask questions and stuff and even get some response back that as chairman I'm willing to address that what we can so that when we get to the next meeting when there's a termination, we'll kind of know what everybody is thinking and we'll have something to work with because we don't want to rush into judgment on any of these issues because some of these are a little more complex or they're newer issues that we haven't addressed in a long time so they don't follow with the thinking we've been doing. Any questions, members, about that? What our plan is? So the way we're going to take this, we're going to deal with 50.5 Cayuga Street first. I believe Lindsay Carter is representing the property owners and we're going to ask her to come and present your request for a variance. And then we'll ask whatever questions we need to get to understanding. What? We have your application.
Okay.
But walk us through it, please.
Oh, okay. So, well, can I submit the letter that I sent to all of the adjacent property owners to 50.5 Cayuga Street to the board?
Yes, certainly.
So this helps clarify why the variance is being sought for the purchaser of 50.5 Cayuga Street.
Is this the tenure of 18 months?
Yes.
Okay, so we
have it.
Yeah, you're in.
Here, so
I'm so organized. So, as I stated in the letter to the, I don't want to have my back to everybody. So as I stated in my letter to the neighbors, there is a contract on 50.5 Cayuga Street. There's a viable buyer for it. The buyer is here tonight. And a condition to having that contract being met, a condition to closing, is obtaining a variance so that the buyer can use the property to the way he wants for his business, and that's a building supply material company, if I have that correct. So looking back through the comp plan that was done for the village, plus seeing as how precedent has been set for the use, the buyer is seeking to, through the current owner, because it hasn't closed yet, so through the current owner, I'm here representing the current owner of Mill Spas. A variance is being sought to be able to use that property similar to what it was used as before, building materials and service and storage. Now, it's my understanding, and you can correct me, that this does not include a retail portion?
Correct.
Okay, so it's just
Business to business.
business your home base,
Yes, correct.
right? So no reconstruction of buildings, no tearing down of buildings, anything like that. Basically, being able to bring it up to code, bring it up to a manner that's satisfactory for your use, rather than seeing it become obsolete, dilapidated, and a wasted space, basically. In other words, an eyesore, basically bring it back. So we don't foresee that this would have a huge impact on what it was. We don't foresee it as having a huge impact, seeing as how this is what it was before. Only this time it doesn't have retail space, so you have less traffic going there.
When did the previous business cease operations?
February, 4 years ago, this February.
Okay.
And based on the application, the property has been trying to be sold for no less than 5 years. So, and this is the first viable buyer for the property.
What building materials are going to be stored, like, not like specifically?
I'm Charlie Mullins, contract buyer. We're a construction company currently out of Ithaca, New York, and we do marker boards, projection screens, roller shades, lockers, toilet partitions, toilet accessories, commercial construction, business to business. So that's the type of materials that we store in the warehouse space, marker boards, wall protection, stuff of that nature.
What's a market board?
Marker board, projection, whiteboards, tack boards, K through 12.
So interior,
Interior, all
finishes
interior
are
finishes after paint.
you're not constructing buildings and
No, no.
wall trusses and
No. And-
siding.
No, and the material that we purchase is fabricated specific for the job site. So we buy the material that comes in already fabricated. We're not taking in raw material and producing final finished goods. We're just purchasing finished goods and then bringing them and delivering them to the job site and installing those.
Could you tell us a bit about the delivery schedule and basically just tell us a bit about the thoroughfare of deliveries and truck sizes and that type of thing?
The business is 7 to 3:30 is what we run. We don't typically run on weekends. In the summer, the guys will load up and we'll run weekends because we have to. Like I said, it's all business to business that we work with. It's so we don't have direct consumers coming in and purchasing materials. We run a lot of our stuff, most of our deliveries are with ABF pump trailers, which are the 24-footers, but we do on occasion get 54-foot trailers in. We get a lot of UPS and FedEx deliveries. Typically we will get 1 to 2 trailers a day. They're typically there for a single unload. My merchandise off the back, they're doing other stops, so they're there 5-10 minutes and then they're on their way. So the main thing is we do receive tractor trailer loads, but not 10 a day, 1, maybe 2 a day. Some days there goes none. You know, in a week we might get one or two, it all depends. But FedEx and UPS, that typical stuff, a lot of materials will come that way as well.
What was the typical tractor trailer delivery schedule for Northwest?
3 to 5 a day. Yeah, I have an existing operation down in Ithaca, I'm running out of storage space and I have no room to expand, and this became an opportunity to do that, to utilize this initially as storage space for the exceeding capacity that I have in Ithaca.
So we might not need as many trailers in and out because we would have additional storage space. So the truck could come and deliver more materials because this would increase the storage space that we currently have by.
So less frequently because you could bring more in and put it on site for.
Correct.
Yeah.
What kind of vehicles are you using in your installation business that would be part of the property there? Or are your workers, is it maintained there or do they?
No, understood. We run 4 12-foot trailers. And they're usually on a job site with the guy, and then the guys are running just standard, the utility beds on the back with single cab trucks, and they've got 2 of those. So the fleet of vehicles is 2 trucks and like 4 trailers, and there's always 2 or 3 trailers gone. And that's.
And now are they parked overnight at the facility?
Yeah, there would be 1 or 2 trailers there, the rest of them will be with the guys, they come.
So your employees come in and leave their vehicle there while they go out and work during the day?
No, they have their vehicle, they come with their work vehicle, they take their vehicles home, and they'll take a trailer home, and usually there's a trailer, there's 2 vehicles, so there's 4 trailers, so usually they're taking a trailer, then they're coming back, and when they're done, they'll grab the other trailer, leave the other one, we put the new materials in it for the next job, and then away they go.
Okay.
In those regards, so what would be usually laying around the job set on the site after we leave at 3:30 would be 2 trailers. 12-foot enclosed trailers.
Would you have trucks coming outside the normal business hours, like you said, on the weekend or in like midnight, or would it always be like during?
No, our guys really like to be done by 3 o'clock. We don't run overtime typically. In the summer, we do a lot of K through 12 work.
Mm-hmm.
So usually in the summer, and unfortunately in August and September, we'll run overtime. And the guys may be around on the weekend, Saturday, picking up something or dropping something off. But being business to business and not going to the residential market or direct to consumers, 7 to 3:30, that's it.
Other questions?
So what route would you see the vehicles taking? Especially, I'm more concerned with the 50-foot tractor trailer type things.
That's a good question. I'm guessing just straight off of 89
On King Street?
Yeah, that across from Frontenac there. I'm guessing that they would come up that way. I don't know what path they've taken in the past. But in regards to tractor trailers, they're always from 11 to 3. They're never there at 7. They're never. On occasion, if it's someone coming up from out of town or something, he might be ready at 7. But the majority, they're loading out of Binghamton or out of Syracuse in the morning, and then they're delivering to us. So it's usually like 11 to 3 o'clock is the delivery time. But the route would be a question I would ask as well, not try to predetermine, what would the routes be or what would be an acceptable route in or out of there, because you're coming through a residential area.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the crux of this issue, as I would understand it. And so I believe thought and agreement on that would be the priority. No, I said that a lot of them are ABF pups. Yeah, no, the 54-footers are 30% of it. You know, the majority of them are coming out of the smaller ABF 24-foot pups, we call them.
So for loading and unloading the materials, will you be using forklifts?
Yep.
Or is it- Okay.
Yeah, usually a propane forklift.
Okay, propane, that was my next question.
And like I said, we don't have the whole tractor trailer. We only have a small portion off of the back of it, so it's literally a pick and they're gone. The tractor trailers are there 10 minutes.
Other questions?
So you're probably not gonna have any signage?
No, not necessary. We don't do marketing and signage. It wouldn't be necessary.
Have you looked at the property from the standpoint of the driveway and the parking lot and the condition of it and how has it deteriorated much and what are you looking at as far as?
What's that? It's better than what I have in Ithaca, although I have in Ithaca stone, so it makes it rough and it's plowing, and then you gotta get all the stone off the lawn in the spring. This one is at least paved and can be patched up. But as I had maybe heard that there's belief that the approach in is maybe a little narrow. Is that what my understanding, or, you know, and that may be an issue?
I'm just wondering about the condition. I mean, I haven't been in and out of the road in
Oh,
4 years
there's-
since business stopped and was wondering if you've anticipated what the condition of going in and
Oh,
out.
no, it was fine when we looked at it, no, it's completely,
It's
we
got
did a couple
drainage.
small potholes.
There'll be some patching and some asphalt, but it's maintenance.
Yeah,
It's just maintenance.
So just to be clear, so stuff would be coming in on a tractor trailer and then going out on a smaller 12-foot
Correct,
closed
correct.
trailer?
Yeah.
And- Okay.
And we're bringing it on tractor trailer, and like most of the stuff would fit on a 12-foot trailer coming in, it just happens to be.
Is your anticipation you're going to keep your equipment undercover at night or just?
Oh, everything
trailers and
undercover. Yeah, you know, if I could bring the trailers down and put them in, I mean, there's quite a few structures on that
Okay.
property, and then it's got a lot of cover, so that would be the advantage of using it all. I mean, it's quite a few open ones as well that would work very nice for cover. No, not to be noticed would be my greatest achievement.
At night, do you see a need for additional lighting or just around the area? Do you have any plans for that, or?
No, we have one in Ithaca that's a night light that goes on. It's just kind of because where we're at, and it's what everybody does, and then therefore you do it. We would, in the winter, you notice that, yeah, there's one there now? Yeah. In the winter, one would be, and even if you put it on a timer, one would be that, 7 o'clock in the morning when the guys show up, that there's a light there. It wouldn't have to be on all night, it could be on a timer to do that, but, no signage, no lighting, nothing of that nature to draw any attention.
Is he putting a gate across the driveway?
I wouldn't see it necessary unless it was requested.
Can't do that.
Yeah, do that with the shared driveway.
Oh, yeah, right.
Don't see where I feel it'd be necessary.
But you can do it anyway, because the neighbor needs to access the right-of-way driveway, the neighbor needs to access that to get to the park.
Any other question? This for the mill spas. Did you have storage that was outside that you had problems with, like in front of the storage, you bring it in every night, or?
Well, yeah, in the porch, we probably merchandise and don't know. Never.
Okay.
So I anticipate some of the neighbors would be real concerned about noise, maybe I'm belaboring a point, but unloading and loading lockers, for instance, metal lockers that can get pretty bangy. What sort of noise level have you experienced with your business?
Really, not much. Propane forklifts are rather light and quiet. No, like I said, we don't create any noise at it because we're not fabricating anything within the building. We're not bringing in raw material, producing something and selling it. Everything we're bringing is ordered and fabricated to fit, and so we're just bringing it in. I mean, we run a saw or a screw gun on occasion in there, don't get me wrong, but, and in regards to the lockers, all my lockers are delivered off-site and built by someone else, and then delivered to the job site from them. So we don't do that, and the welded ones go directly to the job site. So there isn't much noise in regards to unloading or in regards to any of our type of.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
46 South Street, we have 3 different applications, 2 for area variances, 1 for special use permit. Who do we have here, and what do you want to tell us, and how simple are you going to make it?
It's a really complex history, but we'll try to keep it simple. For the record, my name is Alan Walters. I'm an attorney at Phillips Lytle, representing Ithaca Neighborhood Housing Services. I've got a host of people here with me tonight. I will start here. Alina Fass and Joe Bowes from Ithaca Neighborhood Housing Services. Lauren A. Donato from my office. Claudia Brenner, our co-applicant and property owner through Sundial Properties LLC. And I believe we have Deb Ossick from the nursery school here tonight as well. So thank you for the opportunity to be here. If I can, I'll just do kind of what I would call a brief project overview, and then I'll be specific in terms of what we're here for tonight, cover some of those details. We have done a submittal, a letter where we think we've explained all the issues, but I'm not going to run through all those details tonight. As you said, that's for another night. We'll try to get the basic facts out and see what questions you might have. All right, so the project itself, we are looking at developing a 17-acre vacant field, currently approximately, I think it's about a quarter mile from downtown Trumansburg. We've got some maps there so you can see exactly where it is. The project is about 14 lots, a subdivision. I say about because we're in planning and the lot numbers are changing slightly depending on how feedback we get from the planning board. But we're looking at about 14 lots. Those 14 lots will have 17 market rate for sale houses, for sale units, 10 affordable for sale townhouses, 6 affordable for rent townhouses, and 40 rental apartments in a 2-story building with an elevator. There's also a 4,500 square foot nursery school that the Trumansburg Community Nursery School will operate. The goal is an intergenerational, mixed-income, mixed-use neighborhood. That's really what we're trying to achieve here. The project applicants are Ithaca Neighborhood Housing Services. INHS has been kind of a leader in a not-for-profit, leading kind of development of affordable housing here in the region for the last 40 years or so. Great track record. Claudia, as the property owner, has been active in the village of Trumansburg as an architect and is working on a number of projects, I think something like 20 projects over time, Claudia. So everybody has a bit of a root or connection to the village. INHS is currently managing Juniper Manor, as well as some apartments on Main Street, so they're very familiar with the community. The background and how we got here. We started this project, really initiated in April or May of 2017, almost 2 years ago. Started with a lot of community outreach, a lot of community meetings held, gather information, hear about concerns about the project. We then moved into what I'll call a sketch plan review process with the planning board. We then, in December of 2017, formally applied for site plan review and subdivision. We spent the first few months with the planning board, kind of what you're doing tonight, reviewing the details, making sure they understood the facts, making sure the applications were complete. Consultants were hired to assist the planning board in its review process. MRB Group is an engineering firm that's been hired to review all the application materials. The village also embarked on a kind of study of the tax implications for the village. There's a fiscal impact study that was prepared. Once the board really was determined that the preliminary reviews, a lot of engineering questions were starting to get answered, we started to move into the seeker review, the environmental impact process. That kind of happened midsummer, I would say. And we spent the next few months answering questions, a lot of back and forth, a lot of experts coming in, providing guidance and feedback to the board, and the board having its own experts weigh in. That culminated in a negative declaration under seeker, State Environmental Quality Review Act, in October of this year. Once seeker was complete, that process finished, we started to move into the actual review of the subdivision, the site plan. So it's been a fairly long and thoughtful, well-developed process. The plans have changed dramatically from the original concept to what's currently before the planning board. Coming out of seeker, we identified maybe 12 issues that had come up that the planning board had said, during the seeker review process, we really need to delve into this issue more deeply when we get to site plan review and subdivision review. We've now done that. The first meeting where we really did that, we asked for feedback on the layout of the site and the parking. And that led to a discussion. This is an attachment. I want to say this is going to be.
A couple of folks back there, there's chairs here if you get tired of the windowsill.
Thank you.
So this particular drawing is tab E to our materials, and it's what we're calling the variance plan. Behind that is tab F, which is the plan, the last plan that was updated for the planning board. Again, we're in this back and forth with the planning board on a host of issues on site layout. We got through most of those issues at the last meeting last Thursday. So we're now kind of re-looking at the overall plan and some updates, some of which may affect things we're going to talk about tonight. I will highlight those for you as we go through it. But the current plan, as I said, has evolved rather dramatically from the original layout. But the planning board clearly requested us to come in for 2 variances. And again, I'll go into those in more detail in just a moment. I also want to mention the special use permit, which also has a somewhat complicated history. Last February, we got a determination from then zoning officer Matt Johnson, who indicated the nursery school did not require a special use permit. It was basing on the fact that the nursery school is licensed by the state of New York as an educational facility, and therefore is treated the same as if it's a primary or secondary school from a zoning perspective. We were asked for additional information. Actually, I think you got involved at some point, right? Because that determination eventually got appealed to you, September, October, maybe even later. You eventually denied that. In the interim, we had provided additional information to the new zoning officer, Laura Snyder, and on December 13th, she issued a determination determining that the nursery school, in fact, needs a special use permit. So we thought we're coming for variances, we'll just put it all in front of the board, all in front of you, all at the same time. So in terms of the variances themselves, again, this is Exhibit F of the materials. There's really, what I would say, 2 fundamental changes that we think make for a better project, the planning board seems to think makes for a better project, realizing that that planning review process is ongoing. But the first is to reduce the front yard setback. Currently, the code sets it at 50 feet. We're suggesting 25. That is based on feedback from the planning board. The impetus for that, as we described in our letter, I think it's safe to say, really mirrors the fact that nowhere in Trumansburg, there are a lot of developments with 50-foot yard front setbacks. It's got a very suburban feel to it. It's a very large setback. The feeling was if we go with more of a 25-foot setback, we can pull in the houses, all of these houses along the drive here, along the edges here, and we can pull the building closer to the road. And it just makes for a better development. Here's what you get. Again, this is tab E of the materials. The houses are much closer to the drive. You don't have the large front yards. It increases backyard size, which we think creates more buffering for the neighbors, which is always a good thing. And it does look more like some of the development that currently you have in the village. So that's really the thinking on the 25-yard setback variance for the front yards. The other variance that we requested, the code requires 2 parking spaces, 2 off-street parking spaces for every residential unit. INHS has taken a close look at its parking needs as it relates to the various properties they manage. And what they have found is that 1.2 parking spaces per unit is really more than enough to meet the needs. So we have not proposed parking variances for the entire site. We've only focused on the residential rentals. So it's not the for sale, and it's not neither the affordable for sale nor the market rate for sale. It's only for the affordable rental units. And it reduces the number of parking spaces required by quite a bit. And it allows us to, again, move the building up. This parking row, one of the issues the planning board raised is the building sort of has a very institutional feel in that it's surrounded by parking lots. And by eliminating one of them through a parking reduction through the overall site, we can shift the entire building up. And it really does become a building on the street. It's got a very residential feel. We did have drawings, preliminary sketches that were reviewed with the planning board on Thursday. We can certainly provide those. I'll talk about more information we provided to the planning board that you may want to see. But it really does create a nice feel for the development. It reduces the asphalt required. Planning board has been talking about perhaps land banking some additional parking, meaning it would be part of an approved site plan, but we wouldn't build it unless it becomes necessary. At least that's been a table or a concept that has been discussed. But again, that review is ongoing. Other things, I guess, just briefly jump into the nursery school. And Deb will correct me if I say anything that's not right on the money. But as we understand, we've got a proposed 4,500 square foot building on the nursery school lot. That's a 38,000 square foot lot. It's a large lot, almost an acre. 3 classrooms, 1 toddler classroom with 12 toddlers. I'm looking at the 2 preschool classrooms with up to 36 preschoolers for a total of 48. Maximum. That's maximum. Hours of operation are 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. The accredited nursery school also will be seeking a daycare license from New York State because the extended hours, going longer in the day, requires a daycare license. They will be moving from their Main Street location. And right now, what I would say is in flux is we've got a parking drop-off loop here in front of the property, in front of the school, with a parking lot right next to it. Recent development that we explained to the planning board on Thursday night. Last Thursday, we signed a contract to acquire 50 South Street. It creates a little bit more flexibility. There's some concern about this access being too close to this house, so it allows us to shift some things up in a way. It also creates some new options because this is a large lot. We have the ability to perhaps change the subdivision line, create some additional space in the back. The planning board asked us to explore putting staff parking sort of behind the building. The playground remains on this side of the building, and seeing what we can do to just have a drop-off lane kind of separate from any employee parking. So we're currently exploring that. We would expect to have some results on that for the planning board next month. If there are any changes, we would bring them to you as well. Obviously, that's relevant to the special use permit and the review of those, of that particular aspect of the application. But that's really it in a nutshell. I will tell you that obviously you know there's been a lot of public controversy about this project. As we've gone through the process, we started at the elementary school auditorium, and we got down to the fire hall, and now we're regular meetings in here. The level of concern, I'm not going to say it's gotten less concerning. There are folks who are still extremely concerned about the project, but the number of people attending has gone down. I view that as a fact that we've been listening and trying to make changes as we go. We're going to continue to do that. Being here tonight for the variances is part of that process. There really was feedback from the planning board that sent us here. And we know there's going to be a lot of concern when we get to the public hearing. But, anything else? Those are definitely the highlights. I think the asks at this point are, we just want you to, if you're comfortable, schedule the public hearing so we can proceed the process. There is a 239M referral, and that needs to happen as well. They did one for the site plan and subdivision, so this would trigger that as well.
That's the referral to the county?
Yes.
Okay.
General municipal law, 239.
Okay. The way I'd like us to handle this is I'd like us to talk about the parking first, then we'll talk about the setbacks, and we'll talk about the entrance door. I'll ask questions about those. I mean, things will overlap, but just so we keep things, we're not jumping around here and there and we're hearing this. On the residential parking, let me ask, you said it's only, the variance you're only asking is for some parts. Can you identify on the map the parts we're talking, on the drawing, the parts we're talking about that we're looking at this?
I bet we can. But I'm going to ask Ryan or Joe, who have lived and breathed this plan for the last 2 years. And I'm afraid Ryan was putting up board, so I did not introduce Ryan Kovac from TWMLA, our landscape architect.
So as part of the exhibit that you were provided in the bottom left-hand corner, albeit in probably very small print, the spaces per dwelling unit very soft on the right-hand column. So it's second from the last to the bottom. It explains which parcels are allocated which ratio of parking. And so I'll go through that now, but I just wanted to let you know that it's there in writing already. So as was stated, 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit as per the existing code are being provided for both affordable and for sale. That leaves the rentals. So the primary rental lot is lot 12, which is a very irregular and largest shaped lot. And that, excuse me, that relates to the multifamily rental unit, the largest of the buildings at the core of the site. Moving to the other rental, and also within that lot, I should say, there's a standalone triplex, smaller unit on the eastern side of that lot, which I'm pointing to here. So collectively, there's a total of 43 units that we're looking to provide 1.2.
So it's just these?
Those 2, no, sorry. And then there's an additional lot, number 4, which is an affordable rental as well.
So a total of 4 buildings? Well, that's one building. One large building, then the eastern building, and then lot 4 building?
3 buildings total.
And what is the western building in that jelly bean shape?
Yeah.
The western building is a 4-unit affordable for sale. And that is a separate lot, defined as lot 13.
So you're only looking at relief of the large rental building, the building to the east of it, and then lot 4, which is to the north of it?
Correct. Yeah.
For parking.
For the parking issue, that's what we're talking about, is the parking issue.
Lot 4 need a reduction.
Can you repeat those lot numbers for me, Ryan, please?
Sure. And again, it's written on the actual document. Just to recount that.
Thank you.
Lot 4,
Yep.
which is 3 affordable rental dwelling units.
Lot 12.
And lot 12. And I'm sorry, Joe just brought to my attention, we actually are providing 6 for that affordable as shown in this drawing. So lot 4 is shown as compliant with existing zoning. I was in error.
Okay, so that's not being reduced.
So just 12.
So we're talking about lot 12.
Lot 12.
Lot 12. Thank you.
Okay. So on a total basis of how many units are, if the whole thing is built, the whole thing is occupied, how many units are we talking?
73.
73?
Yep.
Of which this is affecting a little more than half of them.
That's right.
Okay. And what is the mix, the generational mix in these affected buildings? Or is this just seniors, is this families? What's
So
the
there-
effective mix?
There is no generational planned mix. These are affordable units and open to anyone. However, by combining these buildings, which happened during the process, they used to be two separate buildings, and putting an elevator in, we feel like we've opened it up to make sure it's available for seniors, should they want to live there.
Well, let me ask it this way.
Yeah.
The units, how are they divided between 1 bedroom, 2, 3, 4, whatever?
So, in this building, this is all 1 and 2 bedrooms, and I think we have 1 3-bedroom unit.
Yes.
So the majority of this building is 1 and 2 bedrooms. Actually, most of them are 1s. And then there's 1 3-bedroom. These would be a combination of 2s and 3s.
What is your experience with those? Do you have properties that have this similar mix of 1, 2 bedroom, 3-bedroom properties?
Yes.
And how does that affect the parking in your experience?
In our experience, so if you look at our entire portfolio, if you look at the number of 1-bedrooms, 25% of the people living in a 1-bedroom have a car. So that's a very low percentage. And that takes into account City of Ithaca and places that are right downtown, very close to bus lines.
Right.
So we did not want to reduce the parking by 25% here, even though we have a lot of 1-bedrooms. But we thought that, and so what we do is we have a model actually that we developed that looks at all of our units by bedroom size and by location. And then we've done an analysis of how many people have cars in our entire portfolio. And then we can actually put the number of units, the number of bedrooms into this model, and it'll spit out sort of how many cars do we think people will have and how many parking spaces do we think we will have. And then what we do with that is we put a locational factor on it. So if you're right downtown and you're on a bus line, the bus stops there every day, the locational factor would be very low. But here, there's a little bit more of a walk to downtown to the bus stop. I mean, it's not far, but it's, the bus doesn't stop here at the moment. So we put a higher locational factor on this, and that came up with a 1.2 parking spot to unit ratio. That's how we came up with that.
Have you validated your model with any other outside models that are sort of looking at the same kind of part? I mean, I guess, do you have another reference?
Well, we have 500 units that we manage, and so we feel, and we've been managing them for over 30 years, a lot of them. We feel like we have a good database internally of, how many people have cars and how many people don't.
We've actually also used it for variances in the past. I know at Hancock Street, parking variance was an issue, and we used the model to justify the numbers. And how's your parking experience been?
Yeah, it's worked out fine. We very rarely have more people needing cars than we have spots.
Does the 1.2 factor in visitors, or is there a separate visitors lot?
What we've done is added an additional 10 spots on top of that 1.2 for visitors, because of the concern that maybe people do come visit, and so we want to make sure there's enough spots for that.
In adding the 10 spots, well, how does that change the percentage, the number, actually? Because I guess, how many spots are you putting in that's 1.2? Is it 50 spots you're putting in and you're adding 10 more, or what's the numbers?
So we have 46 units there. How many parking spots are in that lot? We haven't done the math that.
Okay, so it's basically 46 units.
Sorry, we can provide you that.
We'll do a bit of a break. We had not done that breakdown.
So even if you said rough 60 and they're adding 10. additional.
46 times 1.2 is 55.2. Call it 56.
And then you built into the plan an additional 10 that are in this same location?
Yeah, they're in this lot.
Because I'm assuming that's the only extra parking area you have.
Yes.
Because the others are all individually parking related to the buildings themselves, all the other individual units.
Right. And so, like, this is a rental unit. We will be managing this property and this property. So if this person needed an extra spot, if there was a family here and they needed an extra spot, even though there's 2 to 1 here, they could have a spot down here. or if they had a visitor come and there wasn't enough parking, they would be allowed to park in this spot, in one of the visitor spots. So
How do you anticipate adding, if we looked at the issue of land bank, where a percentage we wanted to set aside that you would have available if you needed, I'm assuming you'll have to put that into the drawing in order to show that.
yes.
And have you explored that yet as you keep reconfiguring your drawings as to where that fits? Because it's a dramatic change, obviously, between this and here. And have you anticipated what that would look like?
Total spots for land banking.
I think it was 8.
We were adding addition, the answer is yes, we looked at the implications of what it means to increase the land banking, and the primary opportunity in the current iteration of the plan that we were provided is on the south side of the.
Oh, that's right.
Of that drive.
Right.
So 8 additional adding.
Right, and when we do an updated plan to the planning board, we will show that. We can certainly show that to you as well. I think for purposes of the variance though, because your code doesn't specifically give the planning board the ability to land bank. I think from a code compliance standpoint, so they could get a C of C, your variance would have to be based on that lower number. And the land banking concept would have to be kind of at the discretion of the planning board. Just because if you only do 1.4, we have to build 1.4.
Right.
That's what it turns out to. If you add the 8 spots, it's
What I don't know is what conditions we can set and whether land banking can be a condition.
Sure.
That's what
As
we have to explore to see.
Sure. As the applicant's lawyer, I'd say we're totally open to that, and I know your lawyer a little bit, and I bet he would be happy to look at that.
Other questions about the parking?
Yeah, is parking allowed on the roads at all?
It's not. These are village roads. These would be dedicated to the village.
Okay, so
And parking is not allowed on village roads.
How is police spots in the development? I mean, if someone randomly decides to park their car there, or will there be passes for cars, or?
Yeah, we typically, we designate spots to units, to households. So as part of their lease, they will get a spot or 2, depending on what their family makeup is. And so we will have a property manager there, if not 5 days a week, most of the days of the week. And they get a sense, they get to know the people who are living there, they know which cars. We also have a maintenance person who will be there, most likely 5 days a week, and they get to know the families and whose cars are which. And so typically, if we see a car that's been there for a long time, it hasn't moved, or it comes there all the time and nobody knows whose car it is, they sort of figure it out.
I just have one question. How does this compare to Juniper Manor, the 1.2?
Juniper Manor, do we know the answer to that? I don't know off the top of my head, but
How many residents are in Juniper 1, do you know?
40 units.
There's 40 units in Juniper
40 units in Juniper 1. They're all 1 bedroom except there's 4 2-bedrooms. Juniper 2, 20 units, 18 singles and 2 doubles.
There's 60 spaces.
At
60 parking spaces.
Juniper 1?
1 and 2.
Between,
One.
which some of those are marked as visitor parking spots. Off in the far corner, farthest place to walk to, I know I parked there.
So that's half the code requirement, right?
It's a 1-to-1 ratio.
Question on the parking area adjacent to it for lot 13. You have approximately, what, 10, 20 parking spots there in the adjacent lot 13, is that separate building to the west? Inside the building, that one. Yeah. That's lot 13.
Yes.
So approximately 20 spots there.
Yes.
And how many units are in that lot 13 building?
So that's only 4 units. So, but because of lot layout, most of these units are for the building. Okay? But we wanted to create a separate lot, and we didn't want to have rear lot line issues, so we just extended it straight across the parking lot.
So,
but there would be a
So
reciprocal.
you're actually close to 20 lots for a 4-unit building.
20?
You're saying some of those parking places are for the other unit?
Yes.
They just look like they're just only for the one.
They do, and there would be cross easements to make sure.
Because INHS will own this land. Right. In perpetuity, we have the ability to give the cross easements.
Right, so those are for sale, affordable, meaning the building gets sold to individual unit owners, portions of the building, but INHS continues to own the underlying ground. But we did create it as a separate lot.
Okay. But that lot has actually more that it needs for that building.
Right, but if you look at the development as a whole, that's how we're kind of.
Who is responsible for snow removal and maintenance?
INHS.
Of everything, unless the roads become village roads, then they would have the roads?
So the village will maintain the roads, and INHS maintains all of the drives and the parking for any rental property.
Right, so the for sales.
And then the for sale, they take care of their own
Owners
driveways?
take care of their own driveways. Whether it's affordable for sale or market.
Right.
You know what the actual percentage of reduction of paved area is between this plan?
We can, I don't have that figure readily available, but we can provide that one.
You're talking going from 2 to 1.2 for a percentage of this.
Right.
So that's the amount of parking we're
It
reducing.
was a fairly substantial reduction in paved surface, and drainage has been a major concern for neighbors.
Yeah, one of the things that we did not do is, even though we removed this entire, this is all pavement, we removed that. We did not downsize the stormwater, because one of the things we heard a lot about through the community planning process and at the planning board was how wet this site was and how we needed to maintain as much water on site as possible. So this plan, with the reduction in impervious, by not downsizing the stormwater, actually will do a much better job. Our retention and detention facilities are oversized now.
Taking it from really well managed to unbelievably well.
Right.
Any questions about any more? We can come back to parking if something comes up, but I want to move to setback. Can we move to setback and talk about that? So the setback we're talking about is related to all of the structures have been moved closer?
Yes.
Yes. Now, what we did was we set the line at 25 feet, and we moved all of the structures up to that 25-foot line. At the end of the day, as we work through this with the planning board, that gives us a minimum, but we don't have to push them all up to that line. We can pull some of them back. So this gives us the flexibility to push and pull a little bit. At the 50-foot line, they would all have to be at that 50-foot setback. But we thought we would show it, what it looks like with them all at the 25-foot setback.
Right. I think what Joe was saying is the planning board has not yet reviewed it, and there's a chance, we did have some discussion with them, they want to push some back, keep some up, make a little variation, and that would really be part of the site plan review process.
So is the person who buys the market value house, is it their choice to where the house goes, or is it IMHS that decides that?
So no, it would be their choice in conjunction with the project property owner and developer and the planning board. So everybody who comes in for an individual lot, even though under your code, single-family homes don't do site plan review, because the overall project's going through site plan review, they'll have to come in and kind of confirm with the planning board, location, et cetera, and make sure the planning board signs off to the extent it amends the site plan.
So a planning board, and what a variance would establish is the minimum of its location. And
Yes.
planning board's gonna, in some way, establish what can go there, and then the individual and the developer will have to develop it and get the sign off.
That's exactly
what they do.
So planning board will approve an overall concept. Now, it may be the planning board, if you grant the variance, every building is approved 25 feet from the road. And there's probably a good chance that happens, but we just haven't gotten there yet.
How is moving the houses, the structures closer, how has it affected the parking and for these individual units?
Yeah.
I noticed it moved it around.
It did. It got rid of something that everybody didn't like, which was the double stacked cars in the driveway. So the concept was family lives here, you'd have 2 cars parked in a driveway. It's not the most convenient thing in the world. If the front car needs to move, the back car needs to go out. There's going to be a rigmarole to get outside and move the cars. They really didn't like it. That's been not well received. By moving everything up, you don't have room for 2. So we kind of had to redesign the approach on parking. And so everything was driveways, now you have some parking lots. It doesn't add a ton of pavement, but it does add a little bit. But that's been the main change there.
Yeah, you still have some double,
Yep.
but you have more where you have now some lots as opposed to all doubles.
Right.
Everything was double.
Particularly for the rentals, we now have like lots. And some of the for sales. But so it broke it up a little bit.
What has been your experience with other developments of driveways and double parking and that? What have your residents said as they've been living here saying, boy, I wish you'd put 2 of them side by side instead of 1 of them end by end?
Well, most of the end by end is in the city of Ithaca in a house that maybe we bought that was already there. It was built in the 1800s, and so that's the way it was designed in those days. Most of the property that we develop new have either some type of parking lot, or they might not have a driveway because they're a multifamily building, for example. So we don't have a lot of experience with these double stacked in new construction. What will end up happening is if this is a for sale market rate lot, for example, the person who buys this is going to decide with Claudia, they're going to design their own house. And so they might design it with a garage. They could design it with a 3-car garage.
That's what I was wondering.
We could show that 3-car garage here, and that would, or a 4-car garage, and that would satisfy the parking. In this case, we've shown 2 cars double stacked.
You basically showed a driveway that could handle 2 cars.
Right.
If that was the minimum a person wanted to do, and they didn't want any garage, they didn't want any parking, any carport or anything.
They could do that, yeah.
That's exactly.
But within the lot sizes, they're appropriate that if a person wanted to decide to do something different, that allows the market.
Easily good.
I mean, I think the major, in terms of parking and design, is it moved this multifamily building up to sort of closer to the street. When we bring the renderings next month, you'll see all of these units have front porches. So it provides them with a greater opportunity to interact. It feels more like a typical village street with a house with a front porch.
Other questions? Good. All right, let's move on to the nursery school. Let's see. So the nursery school is something that is allowed to operate in a residential district as long as it gets a special use permit. That's what we're talking about. It's part of our zoning that's written that way. Certain things have to be reviewed. I guess one of the questions it's still comes down to the egress in and out for the families coming in. How many employees are going to be working there, and with 10 employees?
At a time, yeah, maximum.
And is there going to be sufficient parking for the 10 employees to all park on site, or some are walking from their homes?
Yes, there will be, but we haven't worked out exactly what our plan is yet.
Right, and that's where I would say we're about to do an updated plan that has kind of explores parking in the back for staff.
How is the program going to be different or expanded from what it is today?
Right, so, well, we can offer early drop-off and extended care in the afternoon. We are limited to a 3-hour program where we are right now. So.
What about the numbers of students? How many do you have?
So we're going to add 1 classroom beyond what we have now.
You have like 25 now.
We have 2 classrooms, a 2-year-old classroom and a preschool classroom. our preschool classroom is small, we could have more children in there, but it's too small. So the preschool classroom will be bigger to take, or the twos classroom will be bigger to take 12 children, and then we'll have another preschool classroom.
But you'll have 48 in this proposal.
In a day, yeah. I mean, we currently actually have 40 children at GCNF, but they come all different days and stuff.
Right, and some run 3 days, some run 5
Right,
days.
So, right.
But how many do you have in like
In a single day right now, I wrote it down, sorry, 18 and 8, 26.
26?
Yeah.
Now, you also have the parent volunteers that come in still?
Right. Our plan is really, I mean, our goal is to maintain our parent cooperative preschool that we've had for 60 years. So the offering early drop-off and the extended care in the afternoon to help parents who want to go to Ithaca and be back in 3 hours is kind of hard to do that.
Now, is the plan that you're going to actually own the building, or are you going to be leasing?
We're working on how that would work exactly.
Okay.
The current thinking is that you'll be leasing.
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't have to plow the drive.
It's done, plows all the inside. Yeah.
Do you expect to be at full capacity for the full day?
I doubt that would actually be the situation. Most likely, I mean, we'll have to see how it plays out, but, I mean, people will still want, actually, the way the preschool, the UCNS and Ithaca does, they have early drop-off, there's a lot of options. Early drop-off, you can do just the 3-hour program, you can do lunch bunch, which we can't even do lunch bunch right now, we can't even let kids bring out lunch and stay for an hour. You know, so some kids will leave after lunch, and then other kids will stay to the end of the school day.
Do you expect a one-time drop-off as well? Like,
The kids will come at lunch?
yeah, and
No.
stay for the remainder of,
No, they would be there.
So either they're full day or else
Or they're leaving at the end of our 3-hour program, or they're staying for lunch and then leaving.
Do you have more demand? Can you meet the demand now? Do you think you're gonna have a lot more people?
We always have a waiting list, we turn people away, we have people who are interested but can't come because they don't have transportation at noon to take their kid to another childcare provider, or, grandma doesn't drive in the winter.
Will there be an after-school component to this?
Well, after our regular morning preschool program, the extended care is after that.
And that goes till 5.
I was wondering, will the school bus be driving you and dropping kids off?
You mean like kids from the public school?
Yeah.
No, we're only,
You're still limiting the age group of who's coming
yes,
in.
we don't want kids to go, they're old enough to go to school.
Got it.
And there was a question with the planning board, and I forgot what the answer was. Does the school bus ever come to the site?
No, I mean, the school bus, usually comes once a year, the school bus will come and pick us up and we go to the school, we go to a field trip to kindergarten, but we can walk down.
home.
And then we walk home, yeah. Yeah, that's the benefit of being so close.
I just wanted to say the reason that they don't have more preschoolers now is because the regulations require that you have 35 square foot per child, so the room at the church isn't big enough for the number of kids that they would have in a classroom. So these rooms will be larger.
I'm assuming it's all one level?
That's the reason.
All one level, yes,
Yeah.
handicap accessible.
And I'm assuming that the playground that is put in for this is fenced and exclusively for
Correct, yes.
the preschool.
Yes, there's other recreational facilities for the building. It's not a community recreation.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, thank you. I'm just going to walk us through, as soon as I find my printout. Yeah, the use variance and the area variance. These again are the things that we'll be considering when we do our determination at our next meeting, if we're prepared to make a determination. On use variances, this relates to the Millspot property. The Board of Appeals, on appeal from the decision or determination, the zoning officer shall have the power to grant use variances, and here's how it's defined. No such use variance shall be granted by the Board of Appeals without showing by the applicant that applicable zoning regulations and restrictions have caused unnecessary hardship. In order to prove the hardship, the applicant will demonstrate that for each and every permitted use under the zoning regulations for the particular district where the property is located. A, the applicant cannot realize a reasonable return, provided that lack of return is substantial. The alleged hardship relating to the property in question is unique, does not apply to a substantial portion of the district or neighborhood. That the requested use variance, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood, and that the alleged hardship has not been self-created. So as we think about the Millspot property, when you think about, how the property has been used in the past and over the last 4 years, how the property could be used, and how does it fit into, so when we review this, we'll review it based on all the uses that are allowed within a residential district. And so I mentioned this to the Millspots, that, one of the things we'll be looking at and considering is what has been the possibility that a permitted use could be used on that property in a reasonable way, or is this the use that is up that we should allow, because other uses have not been able, you've not been able to realize the use of your property. So that's kind of the thing. So I mentioned it to the applicants that you probably should be prepared to answer some questions related to that. And then as it relates to the neighborhood, that's where we encourage neighborhood individuals who live in the neighborhood, if you're here tonight, be ready to speak to how you feel the neighborhood would be impacted positively or negatively, and so that we can hear what your viewpoint is on that. I think, let's see. And then in granting a use variance, we should grant the minimum variance that will be deemed necessary. So, if we move in a direction of allowing a use that's not permitted in residential, we give them the least amount of open use as is necessary if we grant a use variance, in order to preserve and protect the nature of the neighborhood, the character of the neighborhood. And then the Board of Appeals, in granting the variance, have the authority to impose reasonable conditions and restrictions. So we can put conditions and restrictions on a use in order to prevent a use from expanding. You know how things expand? Cars expand in people's driveways and things like that. So we have the ability to do that. So be thinking about that as we talk about that property, so as to minimize any adverse impact that it might have on the neighborhood or the community. So that's the use variance. The area variance, which would relate to both the parking and to the setback. In making our determination, we have to weigh against the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or the community. Whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood, is allowing less parking or closer setbacks, is that going to cause difficulty in the character of the neighborhood? Can the benefit be achieved by some other feasible method other than the variance? Is the variance substantial? And the proposed variance will have an adverse impact on the environmental conditions in the neighborhood or the district. One of the things, because a seeker has been done in this project, one of the things we'll want to put out onto the record at our next meeting is some of what the planning board has said with regard to, because they did the environmental study, and they're the lead agency on this, as to what they see in the environmental impact of the parking, maybe particularly, or the setbacks as far as the whole property as a whole and how it impacts the neighboring properties, and whether, but we'll put that into the record at our next meeting. was the alleged difficulty, self-created, every difficulty is self-created. We do this normally. Okay, and so as we grant if we grant an area variance, we're looking to grant the minimum that's necessary to accomplish the goals, if we grant a variance at all, while maintaining the character and the safety and the welfare of the community. We can put conditions on, it states it right here. We may have to check if we're going to put conditions on that relate to something like a land bank. Probably I should pursue with our village attorney that that kind of thing falls under the purview of what a condition would be, so that we're prepared that if we're going to do something like that, we already have our legal footing and we're not delaying the process further. What kind of conditions. And then I think that's it. And then the special use permit is, we don't have necessarily a set rules, 5 tests that we go through on the use permit. We're just looking to see if it's reasonable for the neighborhood in which this is going to happen. Does it look like it fits in with everything that's happening there and is not going to, again, really cause an adverse situation to the neighborhood? Questions about what we're moving ahead to do? Can I have a suggestion for a public hearing? Are we available 2 weeks?
No.
We can't do it 2 weeks? You can't get it in the papers? 10 days? 10 working days? Yeah. 3 weeks?
3 weeks is good. That puts us in the week of February 18th, the 18th being the holiday, being President's Day. So I would say Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday that week.
What does it look like for you? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday?
Which week are you talking about?
You're not available?
I'm only available Tuesday that week.
Okay.
I'm out of town the rest of the week.
Tuesday, February 19th, is that what you're saying?
That is what I'm saying.
Tuesday, February 19th?
Going once.
Good.
And time, 6,
6.
6:37, 6.
Tuesday, February 19th, 6 p.m. Do you have to make that a motion?
No, we do.
Okay.
Just need to make sure I heard.
Will the public hearing be here, or will we be having that in a
I
larger
was
space?
just getting ready to ask that question, thank you. I'm looking at you guys for guidance. I'm happy to set it up wherever you would like it.
I will go wherever you want us to go.
Oh, don't do that.
How's the weather? Can you do it in the parking lot?
Perfect.
How about Orlando?
Orlando's nice this time of year, not really, it's like.
I
think a larger venue.
Let's do it at the fire hall? Is the fire hall large enough? Is that large enough?
Okay, so now
It's
we
only
have
twice the size? Why? They have something on Tuesdays? Where else has we done it? At the school?
I think we're okay in the firehouse. Let me double check if there's a problem. Can we come up with a plan B so that I can?
Well, Scott can't be here that.
I'm away from the.
Okay, so could plan.
What's that?
No, there's no beer in both of those. We could shoot for the 14th, but I think it's really pushing it. I don't know if that's. My 25th would be your regular meeting.
I'll be in town for you.
That'll keep that.
Way too much vacation.
All right, we're gonna make them, okay, so let's do this.
19th.
Let's schedule it the 19th at the firehouse.
Okay.
If there's a change, please check with the website. And I will also send a communication increase with.
You mean a change in the location?
Is that what I said?
Change the location.
Oh, that's what I'm not.
We're gonna do the meeting that date.
Absolutely.
We're gonna shoot for the firehouse.
Right.
If not, it will be someplace else.
I'm sorry?
Someplace else.
We can't pack over 60 in here, the code officer will have a hissy fit, remember? Okay, so fire first, or here, got it.
Any other business needs to come before us?
Oh, for the. Okay, so we have a variance application that was being processed by our former zoning officer that was not processed correctly. It never came to me, it never went any further. So we have found that in the rubble. And it is for a shed placement, accessory building placement in a property where you can't set it. There's nowhere to be
Okay.
compliant.
So we can put it on this meeting's
And
agenda.
that would be my wish, if it's okay with you.
Yeah,
So I'll
definitely.
send you out, we literally just.
As long as we see the information.
Okay. All right, so I will add that information to the Dropbox, to your emails, and to the public hearing as noted.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Neil, second. By Bill, all fair, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no.